placed on the reserve did not report list, but Eric DeCosta says on Bateman he expects him to be at camp very soon. Other moves the team made ahead of camp: fullback Pat Ricard has been placed on the PUP, as has cornerback Pepe Williams, defensive tackle Rashad Nichols, and wideout Mike Thomas. So health at the running back position, it's been questionable the last couple of years. J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards, they haven't played a full season since 2020. Ahead of training camp, the Ravens have gone out and added some depth. The team has agreed to terms with two-time Pro Bowler Melvin Gordon. Gordon has spent the last 7 seasons with the Chargers and Broncos, going to the Pro Bowl twice. Last year in Denver, he rushed for 318 yards, but fumbled 5 times before being released by the Broncos. It's a reported 1-year deal between Gordon and the Ravens. Ian Rappaport of NFL.com is reporting that the Raiders will host Marcus Peters for a visit and a workout on Monday. The former All-Pro cornerback has played for the Ravens since 2019, appearing in 13 games last season with the team. Still ahead, the first-place O's look to extend their lead over the Rays as Game 2 of that series gets underway. We'll take you out to St. Pete on the late edition of Sports Unlimited.
We are looking at a gorgeous weekend, and you have the green light all weekend long. Tomorrow morning, we start off with temperatures in the 60s and 70s. Then we'll be in the 80s for the afternoon, but we'll have plenty of sunshine and low humidity, not just on Saturday, but also on Sunday. After that, though, the rain chances increase and the humidity and temperatures rise. I'll let you know just how hot it will get and when to expect rain in my full forecast in about 20 minutes. Back to you.
Jasmine, thank you. Well, this summer, Sinclair Broadcast Group is partnering with the National Diaper Bank for Sinclair Care's Summer Diaper Drive. Scan the QR code on your screen to help local diaper banks provide diapers to children and families in need. You can donate today for a healthier future for little ones. And if your family is struggling with basic needs for your baby, go to sinclaircares.com. Coming up on Fox 45 News at 6 o'clock, does the study really prove the program works? We look into questions surrounding a Johns Hopkins report on safe streets. And the governor promises justice will be served. The latest on the investigation into the Brooklyn Homes mass shooting.
Monzi's former director now criticizing certain city council members. The claims made in her new op-ed as we examine the transparency concerns during her tenure. Fox 45 also looking into a Johns Hopkins study that says Safe Streets does work. Why one local group is calling the report misleading. And a settlement has been reached in a lawsuit against the Trump Organization, what it could mean for former President Trump's criminal hush money trial.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 6.
Tonight we continue our coverage on Safe Street's role in the Brooklyn Homes mass shooting. In a new op-ed, former Monzi director Shantae Jackson singles out certain city council members, saying their concerns over the Safe Streets program and its response were politically motivated. Those council members demanding transparency from Monzi and Safe Streets, calling for answers on how violence interrupters interacted with the crowd and exactly what information they knew about weapons at the block party ahead of the shooting. Good evening, I'm Maxine Stryker. Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost spoke with one of those council members, and she has the latest.
The op-ed defends the Safe Streets program, but what's not included underscores why we've been asking these questions about how Safe Streets operates and what are the policies within Monzi. One councilman we spoke with who's targeted in the piece simply says that he believes this is just a deflection from accountability. Shantae Jackson, the former leader of the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement, or Monzi, out with an op-ed in the Baltimore Sun, calling out two council members for asking questions about the Safe Streets program. Jackson's first public comment since suddenly leaving her role.
In asking that question,
The topic on WBAL News Radio.
these two white council members misconstrued the efficacy and role of community violence intervention work being done in some of the city's black communities.
And now, Councilman Isaac Yitzi Schleifer pushing back on the criticism by Jackson in the paper.
This whole thing was a complete distraction, and that's what she was attempting to do. It was laced with inaccuracies, and that's really what we've seen from this individual since she started.
Good evening and welcome to the Public Safety and Government Operations Committee meeting.
Schleifer demanded answers from interim Monzi director Stephanie Mavronis during the Brooklyn mass shooting hearing on July 13th. Questions about the 5 mediations completed by 4 Safe Streets workers at the Brooklyn Day block party before the triggers were pulled never really directly answered.
When we know that there were 10 different people who were possibly shooting at this one instance, to know that they mediated 5 conflicts and the odds are at least 4 of them involved weapons, to know whether or not there's any correlation.
Jackson was at the hearing despite leaving her position at the end of June. In her op-ed, Jackson also criticized Councilman Eric Costello for his questioning of Monzi and the Safe Streets program, trying to understand what policies and protocols are in place for the city's flagship gun violence prevention program. Costello telling Fox 45 News his questions are rooted in accountability, especially since Monzi now has more than 40 employees and a budget that's grown to more than $20 million in 2 years. In his statement, Costello says, quote, "I will continue to ask hard questions of Monzi because the people of Brooklyn and the city as a whole deserve real solutions and support from wraparound services like Safe Streets, not just continued lip service." Schleifer says Jackson's comments now are not a surprise.
She spent her entire tenure in this agency running away from the media.
And that's reality, as we've tried to get answers from Jackson over the years about how the multi-million-dollar Safe Streets program operates. Director Jackson, can I ask you a couple of questions? Director Jackson, can you explain a little bit more about ROCA? When can we learn more about Safe Streets? I know that you announced your resignation and you're planning to leave. Can you say where you plan to go?
Let me stop right here.
Okay.
Never, ever will I prioritize any news about me over top of news about our young people.
That's why I didn't ask
we
during
can
the
save
press
that question for a time when I'm ready to share it. Thank you.
Do you have any idea who will be taking your place, especially given this youth curfew plan and Monzi's role in this? Jackson's op-ed only calls out Schleifer and Costello.
It's, a little strange considering there was other council people as well who were holding them accountable.
Not Councilman Antonio Glover, who went further in his critique of Jackson's former agency. Should Monzi be getting the level of funding that it is?
Right now, I think that until we start to see transparency in data, I think that money should be held to a hold.
Regardless of the criticism, Schleifer says he won't stop demanding answers from Monzi.
And I'm going to continue to ask it, and if we don't receive the follow-up prior to that hearing, I'm going to repeat the very same questions that I asked last time.
Especially as City Hall doubles down on the Safe Streets program and the community violence intervention effort in Baltimore City. Given the latest questions about Jackson's current role, we asked City Hall if she's still on the payroll. We're still waiting on an answer. In the newsroom, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Well, as the City Council demands more transparency from Safe Streets, the mayor is doubling down on his position that workers and the department as a whole needs to keep its operations secret, refusing this week to provide any concrete insight into how mediations are tracked or reported by the workers.
We're talking about a very privileged document, Mackenzie.
So there is a document does exist?
We're talking about a very sensitive process. We cannot put those workers at risk just because we want to think about and critique and criticize something that some people don't understand.
Can the public see a blank form?
I think the public should trust and know, just like they trust our police officers, that these lifesavers are out there doing their work.
Another question we have about Safe Streets is how workers are trained. The Board of Estimates today approved a $134,000 contract for the University of Baltimore to train Safe Streets workers. The school will partner with the Schaefer Center for Public Policy to create the Violence Intervention Certificate Program.
This certification program is going to go incredibly far in expanding our capacity to do this work as a city and to help formulate the best strategies to continue doing this work and saving lives across Baltimore.
Fox 45 News has been trying to find out how Safe Streets workers are trained for years, but the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement won't tell us. Another key point of Jackson's op-ed, the effectiveness of Safe Streets based on data from a Johns Hopkins study. But tonight, some are questioning if the data is reliable. Fox 45's Vincent Hill spoke to a political analyst about the transparency of the report.
34 pages of numbers, graphs, and stats, but does it all add up? Or is it another questionable part of the Safe Streets program?
Former Monty director Shante Jackson sticking to her guns about the effectiveness of Safe Streets, touting much of the success to a Johns Hopkins report she implemented shortly after taking office, led by Dr. Daniel Webster.
2 months after I started, he was one of my very first calls. So that evaluation has wrapped up.
The effectiveness of the 34-page report released in March of 2023, much like the Safe Streets program, called into question because it was funded by Baltimore City taxpayers.
And I think the fact that it is funded by taxpayer dollars is just another reason why MONSE and Catholic Charities and everybody else who is involved with this organization owes the public a duty to be as transparent as possible.
Eurypsy Morgan of the group Peace says Johns Hopkins should have funded its own report. Otherwise, it questions if the report is biased based on the price tag.
I think that it raises a lot of questions about the methodology that was used, how sound it is.
Morgan calling the report misleading when it comes to a reduction in crime.
That study actually has been horribly misconstrued, and it actually says in the very beginning that any reduction that was found was really in the first 4 years of implementation of Safe Streets.
Pointing to another Johns Hopkins study paid for by taxpayer dollars.
Let's not forget that the former state's attorney, Marilyn Mosby, also used a study that was a Johns Hopkins study to tout the supposed success of her policies, but we know that didn't go over very well.
Morgan says the true results can't be found in the report, but in the words on the street.
Now, much of this report is based on prediction models and not so much data from BPD about non-fatal shootings and homicides. In Baltimore, Vincent Hill, Fox 45 News.
Well, that leads us to today's question of the day. Do you think the mayor needs to answer all questions about Safe Streets? So far, 90% of you who voted say yes. To weigh in, just go to foxbaltimore.com/vote.
Now, a Fox 45 News alert in 3, 2, 1.
Fox 45 is following breaking news right now. Former Trump lawyer Michael Cohen's case against the Trump Organization won't go to trial. The two parties apparently have reached a settlement in a dispute over legal bills totaling about $1 million. It comes at the 11th hour, just before that civil trial was set to begin Monday. Cohen alleged the Trump Organization had agreed to pay his legal bills in connection to numerous investigations. Those payments stopped when he started cooperating with authorities in their investigation against the company. Trump lawyers argued that the cooperation terminated any agreement Cohen had with the organization. Well, despite the settlement, Cohen is still expected to be a witness against Trump in a criminal trial next March. Maxine?
Fox 45 News has learned that Marilyn Mosby has filed for divorce from her husband, Baltimore City Council President Nick Mosby. The paperwork was filed this morning in Baltimore City Circuit Court. Marilyn Mosby was indicted in January 2022. She's accused of perjury and making false mortgage applications relating to the purchase of 2 vacation homes in Florida. In a joint statement, Nick and Marilyn Mosby say after careful consideration and much prayer, we have decided to end our marriage. We want to emphasize our commitment as strong co-parents moving forward. Coming up at 10, Fox 45's Keith Daniels will have more on what comes next for the Mosbys. Fox 45 is your home for the FIFA Women's World Cup. Tonight, the United States has its first match of the group stage, taking on Vietnam. Coverage starts at 9 right here on Fox 45. And that will create some changes for our lineup here. Tonight, you can find our 10 o'clock news on the CW Baltimore. A major development in AI regulation, the new safeguards being put in place, and the companies that have to agree to them.
The controversial debate over big tech and censorship is heating up. I'm Janae Bowens in Washington. I have details on why Republicans are defending a Democrat's right to free speech.
And we are getting ready for a quiet night as temperatures go from the 80s down to the 70s by 11 p.m. I'll let you know how low temperatures get and then what to expect for the rest of the weekend in my full forecast.
Trending now, President Joe Biden announcing Microsoft, Google, and other leading AI companies have committed to new AI safeguards set by the White House. The companies agreed to allowing outside security testing of their products, sharing data about the risks of AI with the federal government, and creating a way to acknowledge content that created by AI with a digital watermark. According to Biden, the goal is to make AI systems and products safer and more trustworthy.
We'll see more technology change in the next 10 years, or even in the next few years, than we've seen in the last 50 years. That has been an astounding revelation to me, quite frankly. Artificial intelligence is going to transform the lives of people around the world. The group here will be critical in shepherding that innovation with responsibility and safety by design to earn the trust of Americans.
The agreement between the White House and the tech companies is set to be implemented immediately. The debate over big tech and free speech has caused a stir on Capitol Hill after House Democrats try to stop fellow Democrat and presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. from speaking during a censorship committee hearing. National correspondent Janae Bowens has more on the controversy.
Party infighting over censorship taking place in a House committee hearing Thursday.
So now I'm subject to this new form of censorship, which is called targeted propaganda.
Democratic presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. accusing big tech companies and the Biden administration of working together to silence him on social media over his COVID-19 claims.
In my entire life, I have never uttered a phrase that was either racist or anti-Semitic.
His fellow Democrats have accused him of just that after a recent conspiracy-filled rant about COVID-19.
The people who are most immune are Ashkenazi Jews and Chinese.
Democrats moved to end the hearing because of Kennedy's previous statements, but Republicans blocked the motion.
He's not safe for the American people. The things that he says is going to get us all in trouble.
Republicans say even if Kennedy's claims are inaccurate, he's protected by the First Amendment.
They did it to, of all people, the most famous name in Democrat politics for the last, three-quarters of a century is the Kennedy name, and they're so committed to this censorship, they're even going after him.
And the Heritage Foundation says Kennedy's censorship concerns are valid.
What's happened to RFK has happened to President Trump, and has happened to ordinary Americans across the country, where they maybe say something that is factually true, and it is still taken down and off of the platform, and there's no recourse.
Now, following the hearing, Kennedy announced a new media network designed to directly reach Americans and bypass what he calls censorship from big tech and the government.
Janae Bowens joining us live now from D.C. What's next for the committee?
Well, House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan is targeting Meta's new social media platform, Threads, and whether they are working with the federal government to, quote, censor Americans. Now, he sent a letter to Meta's CEO, Mark Zuckerberg, just a few days ago, asking for material concerning Threads' engagement with the executive branch and the company's decisions and policies regarding content moderation. Maxine.
Thanks so much for joining us here tonight. Well, that brings us to our national question of the day. Do you think there's too much censorship of free speech by social media companies? So far, 89% of voters say yes. You can head to our website, foxbaltimore.com/vote, and click on the Pulse tab to weigh in.
Right now, you're taking a look over the harbor and over Towson, where it's nice and dry following the rain and storms that we had earlier. That was all a part of our next weather maker, and fortunately, because of that weather maker, we are looking at lower humidity for the weekend. So even with the warm temperatures, it's not going to feel really humid. 84 currently with a heat index of 86. We now have mostly cloudy skies in the background, but we'll start to quiet down and see those clouds clear overnight. Across the state, current temperatures are mainly in the 80s, still some lower numbers as we look toward western Maryland, but otherwise it's been a pretty pleasant afternoon following the rain and storms. Now, we did have a couple of very isolated showers this afternoon and evening, and now seeing a couple of showers over the bay. We will stay mostly dry overnight and then for the rest of the weekend, but this is all behind that cold front that led to the rain and storms this morning. Behind that, nice and dry air, and that dry air will stay in place for the weekend. So if you're planning on spending some time outside, we are finally looking at the first dry weekend of July so far, so enjoy it. Overnight, our temperatures drop to the 60s and 70s. Then we're looking at highs in the upper 80s, low 90s, keeping things close to average, but it's not going to be terribly humid. As we head into the night, the clouds gradually clear. We'll start tomorrow morning with plenty of sunshine and temperatures in the 60s and the 70s. By the afternoon, more clouds arrive, but it'll be a very pleasant day. We'll stay mostly clear as we head into the night, and then Sunday morning looks great. By the afternoon, we'll have more clouds and there's the potential for an isolated shower. Most of us stay dry. It's Monday when we have a better chance for rain and storms, and then again on Tuesday. Wednesday will be dry, and we stay mostly dry on Thursday and on Friday. Low temperatures drop to 68. Then tomorrow, highs will reach the upper 80s and the low 90s. We'll have plenty of sunshine and low humidity, but as we head into the upcoming week, the humidity increases along with rain chances. I'll let you know what you can expect coming up in the exclusive 10-day forecast.
Weather Window, presented by the National Weather Desk.
Baseball-sized hail damaged homes and cars near Flint, Michigan on Thursday. Here are some great images of storms over South Carolina last night, including this double lightning strike in Arcadian Shores. While this one captures 3 bolts, with 2 going through a cloud in North Myrtle Beach. And check out the waterspout that appeared in Fort Morgan, Alabama this morning.
For more content like this, follow the National Weather Desk on TikTok.
As gas prices rise nationwide, Washington state lawmakers are demanding transparency. The new legislation being made to force gas companies to reveal how they price their product. With the national average rising once again for gas prices, Washington state is still seeing the highest prices nationwide at nearly $4.93 a gallon. Now, state lawmakers are demanding more transparency from oil and gas companies on how they set their prices. Linan Wen from our Sinclair sister station in Seattle has the story.
Now, we're not against profits, but we're against price gouging. And we intend to get to the heart of what's really going on here.
Governor Jay Inslee accusing oil and gas companies of making massive profits off the backs of consumers, announcing a plan demanding transparency in the industry.
Force these companies to open their books and to have a mechanism, if we find price gouging, to rein it in.
According to AAA, Washington state currently tops the nation with the highest national average in gas prices.
It's crazy, and it's just skyrocketed. And
It's horrible.
But it's also hurting small family-owned gas stations like Andy's Handy Mart in Burien, which has been in the community since 1962.
The margin has not kept pace with the cost of expenses. We are actually making a lot less.
The higher prices don't translate into more dollars for Alex Simkis's business, as